Commander Zixalth had seen many things in his 40 years of service to the Vrelian Collective. He had witnessed diplomatic triumphs, prevented wars, and negotiated treaties between species that barely tolerated each other's existence. But he had never seen anything quite like what was happening in Docking Bay 7. The bay was a mess. Cargo containers were scattered across the floor like a child's toys. Scorch marks decorated the walls in abstract patterns, and in the center of this chaos stood 3 humans, facing down 30 Korthax warriors. Zixalth watched from the observation deck, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. The Korthax were massive creatures, each one standing nearly 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and 4 arms that could crush steel. They were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors who rarely lost in combat. 30 of them should have been able to handle almost any threat. The 3 humans looked tiny by comparison. They wore simple combat gear, nothing fancy or high-tech. One was a woman with short dark hair and a scar across her cheek. Another was a tall man with a cybernetic arm. The third was shorter and stockier, with a wide grin that seemed completely out of place given the situation. "This is your final warning," the Korthax leader growled, his translator making his voice sound like grinding rocks. "Surrender the cargo you stole, or we will take it from your corpses." The woman with the scar laughed. Actually laughed. "Stole? We bought that cargo fair and square. You're the ones trying to steal it because you don't like the price we paid." "Humans lie," the Korthax leader said. "This is known. We will collect what is ours." Zixalth reached for his communicator. He needed to call station security before this turned into a bloodbath. The humans were clearly outmatched. 3 against 30 was suicide, no matter how brave they were. But then the shorter human spoke up. "Hey, before you guys try to kill us, quick question. Do any of you know what a Molotov cocktail is?" The Korthax warriors looked at each other in confusion. Zixalth was equally confused. What kind of question was that? "I will tell you after we crush you," the Korthax leader said. "Nah, I'll show you instead," the shorter human said. He pulled something from his belt. It looked like a glass bottle filled with liquid, with a cloth sticking out of the top. He lit the cloth with a small flame. "This is a Molotov cocktail. We invented it to fight tanks. You guys aren't tanks, but you'll do." He threw the bottle. It shattered against the nearest Korthax warrior, and suddenly, the warrior was on fire. The warrior screamed and ran, crashing into his companions. The fire spread. "That's our cue," the woman said. She and her companions moved. What happened next made Zixalth question everything he knew about combat. The humans didn't fight like any species he had ever seen. They didn't stand their ground and trade blows. They didn't use advanced weapons or energy shields. Instead, they moved like water, always flowing, always changing direction. The tall man with the cybernetic arm grabbed a cargo container and threw it. Not at the Korthax, but at a support beam. The container hit with tremendous force and the beam collapsed, bringing down a section of scaffolding onto a group of warriors. The woman pulled out a simple metal pipe from somewhere and used it to vault over a Korthax who tried to grab her. While in the air, she kicked the warrior in the head, then landed and rolled behind a crate. When 3 Korthax rushed after her, she kicked the crate toward them. It exploded. Apparently, it had been full of some kind of reactive chemical. "Sorry about that," she called out cheerfully. "Should have checked the labels." The shorter human was doing something even stranger. He was talking. Non-stop. "Hey, big guy, you know what's funny? Your armor looks really tough, but I bet it's heavy, right? Makes you slow. Me? I'm small and fast. Watch this." He ran between the legs of a Korthax warrior, then jumped up and grabbed onto the warrior's back. Before the Korthax could react, the human had pulled out some kind of tool and started removing the warrior's armor plates. "These are nice! I'm keeping these!" Zixalth watched in horror and fascination as the battle continued. The humans were outnumbered 10-1, but they were winning. They used everything around them as weapons. They turned the environment into a death trap. They talked and joked the entire time, making their enemies angry and reckless. But the worst part, the part that made Zixalth's blood run cold, was the look in their eyes. They were enjoying this. The humans were having fun. One Korthax warrior managed to corner the woman with the scar. He raised all 4 arms to strike. She smiled at him. "You know what? I'm tired of running." She dropped her pipe and cracked her knuckles. "Let's dance." The Korthax swung. The woman ducked under one arm, blocked another with her forearm, and punched the warrior in the throat with her free hand. When the warrior stumbled back, she grabbed one of his arms and used his own momentum to throw him over her shoulder. The massive warrior crashed into the floor so hard it cracked the deck plating. "See?" she said, looking at the fallen warrior. "Sometimes simple is best." The tide was turning, and not in the Korthax's favor. More than half of their warriors were down, injured, or running around on fire. The humans had barely been touched. A few scrapes, maybe a bruised rib, but nothing serious. The Korthax leader roared in fury. He charged at the tall man with the cybernetic arm. The man didn't run. He didn't dodge. Instead, he ran toward the Korthax leader. They collided like 2 trains crashing. The Korthax leader grabbed the man in all 4 arms and lifted him off the ground. "I will crush you, human!" The man smiled. Blood ran from his nose where he had been hit, but he smiled. "2 things," he said calmly. 1, you're standing right next to the airlock. 2, my cybernetic arm has a rocket booster." His mechanical arm suddenly blazed with thrust, and he twisted in the Korthax leader's grip. The momentum carried both of them sideways. The man reached out with his normal hand and slapped the airlock emergency release. The door opened. The atmospheric shield was still up, so they weren't sucked into space, but beyond the shield was nothing but vacuum. The man grabbed the Korthax leader tight and activated his cybernetic arm's booster again. They flew through the shield and into space. Zixalth couldn't breathe. The human had just taken them both into space. That was suicide. That was insane. The man came floating back through the shield a moment later, using his rocket arm to propel himself. He was holding his breath, his face turning blue, but he made it back inside. The airlock closed. The man collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. The Korthax leader was still outside, floating away, screaming for help. "Someone might want to get him," the man said between gasps, "before he drifts too far. Not me, though. I'm tired." The remaining Korthax warriors looked at each other. Then, without a word, they ran. All of them. They abandoned their leader and fled the docking bay as fast as their legs could carry them. The 3 humans sat down among the wreckage and started laughing. Zixalth stood in the observation deck, his hands shaking. His aide, a veteran named Court, stood beside him. Court had been quiet during the entire fight. "I need to file a report," Zixalth said. His voice sounded strange, even to himself. They violated at least a dozen protocols. The violence, the improvised explosives, the one who went into space. Court put a hand on his shoulder. The old veteran's face was serious. "Commander, I'm going to give you the best advice I've ever given anyone. Don't report the human warriors." "What? Why? This is my duty. I have to document this incident. I have to—" "Don't report the human warriors," Court repeated. His voice was firm, final. "Please, trust me on this. Just don't." Zixalth looked at his aide. Court had been in the military for 70 years. He had never steered Zixalth wrong before. But this made no sense. "I don't understand," Zixalth said. Court looked down at the docking bay, where the 3 humans were now helping each other check for injuries. "I know you don't. But if you file that report, you will understand. And by then, it will be too late." Zixalth pulled away from Court's hand. I follow protocol. I follow the rules. That's what separates us from barbarians like them. He pointed at the humans. I'm filing my report. Court closed his eyes and sighed. Then I'm sorry, Commander. I truly am. Zixalth didn't understand what Court meant. Not yet. But he would. Very soon, he would understand exactly why even the smartest aliens refused to report human warriors. 3 days had passed since the incident in Docking Bay 7. Zixalth had spent every free moment researching. His office was filled with data files, old reports, and classified documents he had called in favors to access. What he was finding disturbed him more than the fight itself. Court had refused to explain his warning. Every time Zixalth asked, the old veteran just shook his head and walked away. So Zixalth decided to find out for himself why Court was so afraid of filing a simple incident report. The first thing he noticed was the pattern. Over the last 50 years, there had been hundreds of violent incidents involving human warriors across the galaxy. Fights, skirmishes, full battles. Humans seemed to get into conflicts with everyone. But the number of official reports filed about these incidents was strangely low, less than a dozen in 50 years. That made no sense. The Galactic Council required incident reports for any violent altercation. It was basic procedure. So why were there so few reports about humans? Zixalth dug deeper. He found the reports that had been filed. Each one detailed human combat behavior in shocked, horrified language. Words like barbaric, excessive, and violations of civilized warfare appeared again and again. The reports described humans using improvised weapons, ignoring personal safety, and employing tactics that most species considered dishonorable or insane. But what happened after these reports were filed? That was where things got strange. The first report he found was from the Thalmor hegemony, filed 23 years ago. A Thalmor fleet had engaged a human mercenary company that was protecting a mining colony. The humans had won, despite being outnumbered. The Thalmor filed a detailed report listing 17 separate violations of the Galactic Convention on Warfare. Zixalth pulled up the names of the officials who had signed that report. All 7 of them. Then he searched for what happened to those officials. 6 months after the report was filed, all 7 had vanished. Not killed, not found dead, just vanished. Their families received messages saying they had resigned and were traveling, but no one ever saw them again. No bodies were ever found. The only clue was a calling card left at each of their homes. A simple white card with a human skull symbol and the words, "You started this conversation." Zixalth felt his skin prickle. He kept reading. The Thalmor government had launched an investigation. They sent their best intelligence officers to find out what happened. Those officers reported that they had found evidence of human special operations teams operating in Thalmor space. But before they could present their findings, they vanished too. Another calling card was left behind. The pattern repeated. Every investigator sent to look into the disappearances disappeared themselves. After 2 years and 37 missing persons, the Thalmor hegemony quietly closed the investigation and pretended nothing had happened. Zixalth moved on to the next report. This one was from the Crystalline Concordat, filed 15 years ago. A human ship had destroyed 3 crystalline raiders who were attacking civilian transports. The Concordat filed a report claiming the humans had used excessive violence because they had destroyed the raiders completely instead of just disabling them. The official who filed that report survived. But the entire Concordat intelligence network didn't. Over the next 6 months, every single Concordat spy, informant, and intelligence officer across the galaxy was exposed. Their identities were leaked. Their operations were ruined. Their safe houses were revealed. The being responsible left messages each time. Messages signed by someone who called herself Payback. The messages were simple and direct. "You complained about excessive violence. Let me show you what restraint looks like. I could kill you. Instead, I'm just ending your career. The Crystalline Concordat's intelligence service never recovered. They had to rebuild from scratch. It took them 10 years and cost billions of credits. Zixalth found himself breathing harder as he read. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how civilized species behaved. If you filed a complaint about someone, they didn't hunt you down. They didn't make your life a living nightmare. They went through proper channels. They responded with their own reports and lawyers. But humans didn't seem to care about proper channels. He found another case. A pirate lord named Kravix the Unkillable had captured a human cargo ship. The humans fought back viciously, killing half of Kravix's crew before being overwhelmed. Kravix filed a report with the Galactic Council, claiming the humans had used unfair combat tactics and demanding compensation for his dead crew members. Yes, a pirate had filed an official complaint. It was absurd, but it was technically legal. 3 weeks later, Kravix the Unkillable was found running a flower shop on a peaceful agricultural world. He had abandoned his entire pirate empire, given away his ships, and freed his slaves. When investigators asked him why, he just started shaking and crying. The only thing anyone could get out of him was 5 words, repeated over and over. The human found me, everywhere. That was 5 years ago. Kravix still ran his flower shop. He still refused to talk about what happened. Zixalth found an interview attempt in the files. The interviewer had asked what the human did to him. Kravix's answer was simple. Nothing. That was the problem. She did nothing. She just showed me that she could. Anytime. Anywhere. For the rest of my life. Zixalth sat back in his chair. His office felt too small suddenly. Too exposed. He looked at his windows and wondered if someone was watching him right now. He was being paranoid. He hadn't even filed his report yet. He was just researching. His computer chimed. An encrypted message had arrived. The encryption was military grade, the kind used by intelligence services. Zixalth's security clearance let him access it, but he had to use 3 different passwords and a retinal scan. The message was from an anonymous source. No identification, no trace of origin, just a text file. Commander Zixalth, it read. I know you are researching human warriors. I know you are planning to file a report about the Docking Bay 7 incident. I am sending you this message because I made the same mistake you are about to make. Zixalth felt cold. The message continued. My name is not important. I am a former intelligence officer for the Nexus Combine. 8 years ago, I filed a report about human combat behavior after witnessing a battle. The battle was brutal. The humans showed no mercy. I felt it was my duty to document their violations. 2 days after I filed my report, I found a human in my kitchen. She was making breakfast, in my secure apartment, in my locked, guarded building. She sat down at my table and invited me to eat with her. She told me her name was Angela. She said she was not there to hurt me. She was there to help me understand what I had done. Then she showed me photographs. Photographs of my family, my friends, my colleagues. The photographs were taken that morning, while I was at work, while they were supposed to be safe. Angela explained that filing a report about human warriors was not a bureaucratic action. It was a declaration. By filing that report, I had told every human military and intelligence service in the galaxy that I was willing to make their warriors' lives difficult. So they were going to return the favor. She said I had 2 choices. I could withdraw my report and learn to mind my own business. Or I could keep the report active and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder because humans never forget and they always have time. I withdrew my report that same day. Angela thanked me, finished her breakfast, and left through my front door. My guards never saw her enter or exit. My security cameras showed nothing. Commander Zixalth, I am sending you this message because you seem like a good person who believes in doing the right thing. But filing a report about human warriors is not the right thing. It is the last thing you will ever do as a free person. Please, learn from those of us who learned the hard way. Do not report human warriors. The message ended. No signature. No way to reply. Zixalth sat in silence for a long time. His hands were shaking. He looked at his computer screen, at the draft report he had been writing. It was detailed and thorough. It listed every protocol violation he had witnessed in Docking Bay 7. It was good work, professional work. It was also apparently a death sentence, or worse. He thought about Court's warning. The old veteran had known. Somehow he had known exactly what would happen if Zixalth filed this report. But Zixalth was a Vrelian. Vrelians were known throughout the galaxy for their integrity, their dedication to law and order, their unwavering commitment to doing things properly. He had built his entire career on following the rules, on making sure everyone else followed the rules too. If he didn't file this report, what did that make him? A coward? A fraud? But if he did file it, he remembered Kravix the Unkillable, crying in his flower shop. He remembered the 7 Thalmor officials who vanished without a trace. He remembered the crystalline Concordat's intelligence service, destroyed by one human who called herself Payback. Zixalth looked at his report. Then he looked at the delete button. His finger hovered over it for a long moment. Then he moved his finger away. He saved the report. He attached it to an official filing form. He added his signature and command codes. Court had been right. Zixalth didn't understand, but he was about to. And yes, by then it would be too late. But Zixalth was Vrelian, and Vrelians did their duty, no matter the cost. He pressed send. The report was filed. Official, permanent, on the record. Zixalth sat back and waited. He didn't know what would happen next, but somewhere in the galaxy he was certain that someone had just received a notification. Someone human. Someone who now knew his name and what he had done. The waiting was the worst part. The first 48 hours after filing the report were quiet. Too quiet. Zixalth went about his duties as normal, reviewing station security reports, attending diplomatic meetings, and managing his staff. But every sound made him jump. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Court avoided him. The old veteran wouldn't even make eye contact anymore. Other members of Zixalth's team had started acting strange, too. They whispered when he walked by. They found reasons to avoid being alone with him. On the third day, Zixalth returned to his quarters after a long shift. He had private rooms on the station, secure and comfortable. The door was locked with a code that only he knew. The windows were made of reinforced, transparent steel. Security cameras monitored the corridor outside. He entered his rooms, sealed the door behind him, and walked to his bedroom. He was exhausted. The stress of the last few days had drained him. There was a woman sitting in his favorite chair. Zixalth's heart nearly stopped. All 3 of them. He stumbled backward, reaching for his communicator. "I wouldn't," the woman said. Her voice was calm and pleasant, like they were old friends meeting for tea. "If you call security, this gets complicated. Let's keep it simple." She was human. Dark skin, short black hair with gray streaks, probably in her 40s by human standards. She wore casual clothes, not a uniform. She sat relaxed in his chair like she owned it. "How did you get in here?" Zixalth managed to say. His voice came out as a squeak. "Your door code is your daughter's birthday backward. Your security cameras loop every 47 seconds. Your window locks are Nexus brand Model 7, which have a known vulnerability. And your guards change shifts at 1800, which gives me a 3-minute window when neither guard is fully paying attention." She smiled. "Should I go on?" Zixalth said nothing. He couldn't. His brain had stopped working. The woman stood up slowly, keeping her hands visible. "My name is Captain Sarah Chen. I'm here because you filed an incident report about 3 of my people. I wanted to meet you in person." "This is illegal," Zixalth finally said. "Breaking into private quarters, threatening a council official." I haven't threatened anyone, Sarah interrupted. I'm just sitting here having a conversation, and I'll leave before you can prove I was ever here. Your cameras won't show me entering or leaving. There's no record of me being on this station. As far as anyone knows, you're talking to yourself right now. She reached into her pocket. Zixalth flinched. She pulled out a small white card and placed it on his table. This is for you, she said. A business card, since we're being professional about this. Zixalth looked at the card. It was plain white with simple black text. It read, "You started this conversation, we'll finish it." What do you want? Zixalth asked. I want you to understand what you've done, Sarah said. She walked to his window and looked out at the stars. You filed a report about human warriors. Do you know what that means to us? It means I documented violations of... It means you declared war, Sarah said, turning to face him. Not with weapons or armies. A personal war. You told the galaxy that you think human warriors need to be reported, controlled, managed. You made it official. So now we're going to respond officially. By threatening me? No. Sarah shook her head. Commander, if I wanted to threaten you, you'd know it. This is something else. This is us showing you exactly why smart people don't file reports about human warriors. Consider it an educational experience. She walked toward the door. Zixalth didn't try to stop her. He was too scared and too confused. At the door, Sarah paused. Oh, one more thing. You should check your flagship, the one you're so proud of. I think you'll find it interesting. Then she was gone. The door closed behind her. When Zixalth checked the lock, it was still sealed. The cameras in the hallway showed nothing. It was like she had never existed, except for the card on his table, and the cold fear in his heart. Zixalth didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he went to check on his flagship, the Vrelian Pride. It was the newest ship in his fleet, equipped with the latest technology and weapons. He had personally overseen its construction. The ship's captain met him at the airlock. She looked worried. Commander, we have a problem. Multiple problems, actually. They walked through the ship. The captain explained as they went. Over the last 24 hours, the ship had experienced dozens of small malfunctions. Nothing catastrophic, just annoying. The food processors produced meals that tasted slightly wrong. The gravity generators fluctuated by 0.03%. The lights flickered in random patterns. The climate control made every room either too hot or too cold. Our engineers are going crazy trying to find the cause, the captain said. Every time they fix something, something else breaks. They reached engineering. The chief engineer, a methodical Vrelian named Kos, was surrounded by opened panels and diagnostic equipment. Commander, Kos said, relief in his voice, maybe you can explain this. He held up a component. It looked normal at first glance. But when Zixalth looked closer, he saw it had been replaced with a perfect replica made from slightly inferior materials. This is from the main power distributor, Kos explained. It's not broken, it's just not quite right. And we've found 27 other components exactly like this. Someone replaced them with parts that work, but not perfectly. Can you replace them with proper parts? Zixalth asked. We're trying, but we don't know if we've found all of them. Whoever did this knew our systems inside and out. They could have replaced hundreds of components. We might never find them all. Zixalth felt sick. He looked around engineering and saw a small piece of paper taped to a panel. It had writing on it. He walked over and read it. The note said, Imagine if we wanted to actually hurt you. Friends of Sarah. The ship was compromised. His flagship, his Pride, had been infiltrated and sabotaged. Not destroyed, not stolen, just made unreliable. Made into a constant source of frustration and worry. It was a message, a very clear message. The next week was a nightmare. Everywhere Zixalth went, there were signs that humans were watching him, not hurting him, not threatening him directly, just there. He went to his favorite restaurant. A human was sitting at the next table. The human smiled at him, raised a glass in greeting, and went back to eating. When Zixalth tried to complain to the manager, there was no record of any human making a reservation. He attended a classified briefing on station security. When the lights dimmed for a presentation, someone added an extra slide. It was a photo of Zixalth sleeping in his quarters, taken last night, from inside his bedroom. The slide appeared for only 2 seconds before the normal presentation continued. No one else seemed to notice it. He visited his family on his homeworld. His daughter gave him a gift she said a nice lady had given her to give to him. It was a photo album. Inside were pictures of Zixalth's entire family going about their daily lives, his daughter at school, his spouse at work, his parents at their home. Every photo was time-stamped. All of them were from the last week. The nice lady had been watching his family, getting close enough to take pictures, getting close enough to talk to his daughter. Zixalth wanted to scream. He wanted to call for help. But what could he say? No one had hurt him. No one had made any actual threats. The humans were just nearby. Always nearby. His security team couldn't catch them. He tripled his guards. He changed his routines randomly. He swept his quarters for bugs and cameras every day. Nothing helped. The humans always knew where he was. They always found ways to let him know they were watching. Packages started arriving. Sometimes it was his favorite food from restaurants on worlds light years away. Sometimes it was personal items he thought he had lost years ago. Sometimes it was just photos of his loved ones, smiling and safe, with timestamps from minutes ago. Each package came with a note. We could have. We didn't. Remember that. Court finally agreed to speak with him after 2 weeks. They met in a private room, one that Zixalth had swept 3 times for listening devices. Now, do you understand? Court asked quietly. They're everywhere, Zixalth said. He heard the panic in his own voice. They're always watching. I can't escape them. I can't stop them. I can't even prove they're doing anything wrong. That's the point, Court said. They're not here to kill you, Commander. They're here to teach you a lesson. They want you to understand what you invited into your life when you filed that report. What lesson? That they can do whatever they want? That they're above the law? No, Court said. The lesson is that reporting human warriors doesn't bring justice. It brings attention. And once you have their attention, you never lose it. They'll never hurt you. They'll never break any laws. They'll just make sure you never forget that they can reach you anytime they want. Zixalth put his head in his hands. How do I make it stop? You can't, Court said. Not yet. They're not done teaching you. When they're satisfied that you understand, they'll offer you a way out. But until then, you just have to endure it. I'm going insane, Zixalth whispered. I know, Court said. His voice was kind. That's why I warned you. That's why everyone warns people not to report human warriors, because this is what happens. Every single time. And the worst part is, they're not even using a fraction of their capabilities. This is them being gentle. Zixalth looked up. Gentle? Commander, they could kill you in your sleep. They could make you disappear. They could destroy your entire life with a few keystrokes. But they're not doing any of that. They're just showing you that they could. That's what gentle means to humans. Zixalth sat in silence, trying to process this. His perfect career, his spotless record, his dedication to duty. All of it had led him here, to this moment, where he finally understood why even the smartest aliens refuse to report human warriors. Because the humans don't just fight you. They show you how completely and utterly they could destroy you. And then they let you live with that knowledge. The 3rd week began with a documentary. Zixalth woke up to find that his face was on every screen in the galaxy. Well, not every screen, but enough that he started receiving messages about it within the first hour of his shift. The documentary was titled The Many Sides of Commander Zixalt. It was professionally produced with dramatic music, excellent editing, and absolutely devastating content. It started with his teenage years, poetry he had written when he was 15, terrible poetry about love and the meaning of existence. His voice, reading the poems aloud, he had recorded himself reading them because he thought he might be a famous poet someday. The recordings had been on a data crystal that he kept hidden in his childhood bedroom on his homeworld. In a locked box, in a secret compartment. The humans had found it. They had also found video of him singing in the shower. Recently. From last week. The audio quality was perfect. Every off-key note was crystal clear. Then came his failed romances, interviews with former partners, all of them politely describing his flaws. His tendency to lecture people, his obsession with following rules, his inability to relax. The documentary made it funny, not cruel. It presented him as a harmless, awkward person who tried too hard, which somehow made it worse. His colleagues were watching it. His family was watching it. The entire Galactic Council was watching it. The documentary had been uploaded to hundreds of servers simultaneously. Every time someone took it down, it appeared somewhere else. The production credits at the end simply said, "A human production, brought to you by the letters Y, O, and U." Zixalt wanted to disappear. His embarrassment was so complete that he seriously considered resigning his commission and moving to a monastery on a distant moon. But he couldn't even do that. Because 3 hours after the documentary appeared, packages started arriving. Lots of packages. They came to his office, his quarters, his family's home. Each package contained something from his life, not stolen, copied, photos of him at various ages, recordings of conversations he thought were private, documents he had written, personal items that had been replicated perfectly, and food. So much food. His favorite meals from restaurants across the galaxy. Fresh and hot, delivered at the exact moment they would be perfect to eat. Breakfast from a cafe on Nexus Prime that he had visited once, 5 years ago. Lunch from a food cart on Earth that he had tried during a diplomatic mission. Dinner from his favorite childhood restaurant on his homeworld that had closed a decade ago. Somehow, the humans had gotten the original recipes. Each meal came with a simple note. Thinking of you. The message was clear. The humans could reach anywhere. They knew everything about him, and they could do all of this while making it seem friendly and generous. Zixalt stopped eating the delivered food after the second day. Not because he thought it was poisoned, but because eating it felt like admitting defeat. Then the photos started arriving. Not the old ones from his past. New ones. Current ones. Photos of his family, his daughter at school, laughing with friends, his spouse at work, focused on a project, his elderly parents tending their garden, his brother playing with his children. Every photo showed his loved ones happy and safe. The timestamps showed they were taken within the last few hours, sometimes within the last few minutes. The photos came with different notes now. Your daughter is doing well in her mathematics class. You should be proud. Your spouse finished that big project. It looks great. Your parents' garden is beautiful this year. It was like getting updates from a family member, except the updates were from strangers who could apparently watch his entire family anytime they wanted. Zixalt hired private security for his family, the best in the galaxy. They lasted 3 days before quitting. They found a note left in their secure command post. It was a list of every member of the security team, including details about their lives that nobody should have known. The note ended with, "Nice try, but you're not making this harder, just more expensive. The family is safe. They always will be. We're not monsters." The security team told Zixalt that protecting his family from these humans was impossible, and they refused to take his money for a job they couldn't do. One morning, Zixalt found his entire apartment rearranged, not messy, actually better organized. His books were alphabetized, His clothes were sorted by color. His kitchen was cleaned and restocked with fresh food. There was even a new plant on his windowsill with care instructions. A note on his table said, "You're under a lot of stress. We thought we'd help. Also, you really need to clean more often. We're warriors, not animals. You're new friends." Zixalth sat down and laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of the situation had finally broken something in his mind. The humans had broken into his home to clean it and give him a plant. Then came the phase he would later think of as the helpful period. His flagship, still suffering from the mysterious malfunctions, suddenly got worse. Much worse. The entire power grid went down during a routine patrol. Life support failed. Weapons went offline. The ship was dead in space. The crew panicked. They were hours from the nearest station. Repair crews were dispatched, but they wouldn't arrive for at least 6 hours. The ship had emergency backup power, but it would only last for 4 hours. Then, a human ship appeared. A small civilian transport. It docked with the flagship, and a team of 5 humans came aboard. They fixed everything in 90 minutes. The chief engineer, Koss, watched in amazement as the humans worked. They knew exactly where every sabotaged component was. They had perfect replacement parts. They moved through the ship like they had built it themselves. The lead engineer, a cheerful human woman named Rosa, explained as she worked. "Yeah, we're the ones who messed up your ship in the first place. Figured we should fix it before someone got hurt. We're not trying to kill anyone. We're just making a point." "What point?" Koss asked. Rosa looked at him seriously. "That we can do whatever we want to your systems. We can break them or fix them. We can make your life easy or make it hard. And your commander is the one who decides which one happens. He filed a report about us, so we're responding. Once he understands, this all stops." After fixing the ship, the humans left. They refused payment. They refused thanks. They just smiled and went back to their transport. They left behind a note for Zixalth. "Your ship is fixed. All of it. We removed every component we altered. It's better than new, actually. We upgraded a few things while we were at it. You're welcome. Consider it a demonstration. We can break things, we can fix things, we can make your life a nightmare, or we can make it better. Your choice." Rosa and the engineering team. Zixalth didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. The humans had saved his crew. They had also proved that they could cripple his flagship any time they wanted. The demonstrations continued. His personal data files were hacked, not stolen, not deleted, organized. Someone went through years of his reports and communications and created a perfect filing system. They fixed typos. They added helpful tags. They even wrote executive summaries for his longer reports. A note in his files said, "Your data management is terrible. We fixed it. Also, you use way too many words. Learn to be concise. The IT department." His morning routine started including messages on his bathroom mirror, written in condensation that appeared when he showered. The messages were encouragement, advice, and occasionally criticism. "Remember to call your daughter. She misses you. That tie doesn't match your uniform. Try the blue one. You're slouching. Fix your posture. Your coffee is too hot. Wait 30 seconds. The humans were micromanaging his life, and the worst part was, they were usually right. His daughter did miss him. The blue tie did look better. His coffee was always too hot. Zixalth started following their advice because fighting them was exhausting and pointless. The breaking point came during a diplomatic function. Zixalth was attending a formal dinner with representatives from a dozen species. He was trying to act normal, to pretend his life wasn't being controlled by invisible humans who seemed to know everything about him. Then he saw her. Captain Sarah Chen. She was attending the dinner as a guest of the human delegation. She was dressed formally and chatting pleasantly with a Nexus ambassador. She saw him, smiled, raised her glass in greeting, then went back to her conversation like nothing was unusual. Zixalth couldn't take it anymore. He walked over to her. "You," he said. His voice was shaking. "You're doing this. All of this." Sarah looked at him with apparent confusion. "Commander Zixalth, how nice to see you. Is something wrong?" "You know exactly what's wrong. The documentary, the surveillance, the packages, the cleaning of my apartment." "I'm sorry," Sarah interrupted. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here for dinner." "Are you feeling well? You look stressed." The Nexus ambassador looked concerned. "Commander, perhaps you should sit down. You do seem unwell." Zixalth realized what was happening. She was gaslighting him, in public, making him look crazy. He had no proof of anything. The documentary was anonymous. The packages had no return address. The surveillance was invisible. He couldn't prove that Captain Sarah Chen or any other human was involved. If he kept accusing her, he would just look paranoid and unstable. Sarah leaned in close and whispered, so quietly that only he could hear. "We're almost done, Commander. Just a little longer. Then we can have a real conversation. Hang in there." She stepped back and spoke at normal volume. "I hope you feel better soon, Commander. Try to get some rest. You look exhausted." Then she walked away, leaving Zixalth standing there, trembling with frustration and fear and a strange kind of anticipation. She was right. He was exhausted, and he knew somehow that the end of this nightmare was coming soon. He just hoped he would still be sane enough to appreciate it. The invitation arrived on a simple paper card, delivered to Zixalth's quarters by ordinary station mail. The card was elegant, with embossed lettering. It read, "Commander Zixalth, you are invited to dinner at the Olive Branch, a human establishment on Deck 12. 8 o'clock tonight. Come alone. We need to talk. Captain Sarah Chen." Zixalth held the card in his shaking hands. This was it. Whatever was going to happen, it would happen tonight. He considered not going. He considered calling security. He considered running. But he was tired. So very tired. And part of him, the part that still believed in duty and honor and facing problems directly, knew he had to go. At 8 o'clock, he stood outside the Olive Branch. It was a small restaurant he had never noticed before. Warm light spilled from the windows. He could hear soft music playing inside. It looked peaceful, inviting. Nothing like the place where his fate would be decided. He went inside. The restaurant was empty except for one table. Captain Sarah Chen sat there, 2 plates of food already served. She stood when she saw him and gestured to the empty chair. "Thank you for coming. Commander, please sit. I ordered for both of us. I hope you don't mind." Zixalth sat. He looked at the food. It was from his favorite childhood restaurant, the one that had closed years ago. The exact meal his mother used to make for special occasions. "How did you—" "We're very thorough," Sarah said simply. "Please eat. We have a lot to discuss, but there's no reason we can't be civilized about it." Zixalth didn't touch the food. "What do you want from me?" Sarah took a sip of her drink. "I want you to understand, really understand, why we did all of this. Why we do this to everyone who files reports about human warriors. To terrorize people? To show that you're above the law?" "No." Sarah shook her head. "To prevent wars." Zixalth stared at her. "That makes no sense." Sarah leaned forward. "Commander, do you know how many species in this galaxy are stronger than humans? How many are smarter? How many have better technology, better ships, better weapons? I don't—" "Most of them," Sarah interrupted. "Humans are not the strongest species. We're not the fastest or the smartest or the most advanced. Do you know what we are?" Zixalth said nothing. "We're the scariest," Sarah said. "And we worked very hard to become that way, because when you can't win by being stronger, you win by making sure nobody wants to fight you in the first place." She pointed at Zixalth's plate. Eat. This conversation is going to take a while. Zixalth, almost without thinking, took a bite. The food tasted exactly like his mother's cooking. Perfect. It made him want to cry. Sarah continued. You filed a report about human warriors. You documented that we fight dirty, that we don't follow the rules, that we use improvised weapons and crazy tactics. You wanted the galaxy to know that humans are dangerous and need to be controlled. That's correct, Zixalth said quietly. You violated 17 protocols of civilized warfare, Sarah finished. Yes, I read your report, very thorough. But here's what you don't understand. Those protocols, those rules of warfare, we invented most of them. Humans sat on the committees that wrote the Galactic Convention on Warfare. We helped create the guidelines for acceptable combat. Zixalth blinked. Then why don't you follow them? Sarah smiled. It was not a kind smile. Because we know the truth about rules of warfare. They only work when everyone agrees to follow them. And they only exist because we all pretend that war can be civilized. But war isn't civilized, Commander. War is about winning. And humans learned a long time ago that you don't win by being honorable. You win by making the enemy too scared to fight you. She stood up and walked to a window. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. Longer, probably. We've had wars that killed millions. We've invented weapons so terrible that we refuse to use them even against our worst enemies. We've turned war into an art form and a science. And do you know what we learned? What? Zixalth asked, despite himself. That the only way to prevent war is to make war so terrible that nobody wants to start one. That's what we do. We don't follow your rules because we need everyone to know that fighting humans means facing an enemy that will do anything to win. We need you scared of us. So you terrorize people who file reports? We educate them, Sarah corrected. You filed a report about us. That told us you don't understand what you're dealing with. So we showed you. Not with threats or violence, with demonstrations. We proved that we can reach you anywhere. That we know everything about you, that we can make your life miserable or comfortable depending on our mood. And we did it all without breaking a single law or hurting a single person. Zixalth felt something click in his mind. You wanted me to withdraw the report. We want you to understand why you should withdraw it, Sarah said. There's a difference. If we just forced you to delete it, you would still think you were right. You would still believe that humans need to be reported and controlled. But now, after everything we've shown you, I understand that you're terrifying, Zixalth said. Good. That's a start. Sarah returned to her seat. Now let me explain the rest. If your report stayed active, other species would see it. They would think, see, even the Vrelians are reporting humans. We should too. And then we would have dozens of reports. Hundreds, every species filing complaints about how humans fight. And that would be bad because it would normalize the idea that humans can be reported without consequences. And if that happened, species would stop negotiating with us. They would stop respecting us. They would think they could control us through bureaucracy and regulations. And eventually, someone would try to enforce those regulations. They would send troops to arrest human warriors. They would try to impose sanctions, and then we would have a real war. Sarah's voice became very serious. We don't want that war, Commander. We would win, but it would be ugly. So much death, so much destruction, and all because people thought they could use paperwork to control humans instead of just talking to us like equals. So you terrorize people to prevent war? Zixalth asked. That's your justification? It's not justification. It's strategy. Sarah ate some of her food. Think about it. We spent a month making your life uncomfortable. We embarrassed you. We scared you. We invaded your privacy, but we didn't hurt you. We didn't hurt anyone you love. We didn't destroy your career or your life. We just showed you what we're capable of. And now you know. Now you understand that reporting human warriors brings consequences. And that's supposed to make me feel better? No, Sarah said. It's supposed to make you smarter. Every species that has filed a report about human warriors has learned the same lesson you're learning now. And you know what? Not one of them has filed a second report. Not one. Because they understand. They tell others. The warning spreads. And fewer wars happen because fewer people think they can use rules and regulations to control beings who don't care about rules when survival is at stake. Zixalth sat in silence, processing this. Everything she said made a horrible kind of sense. The humans weren't being cruel. They were being practical, terrifyingly practical. I want this to end, he said quietly. Sarah nodded. I know. And it can. Right now. All you have to do is withdraw your report, officially, publicly. Say that you reviewed the incident and determined that no protocols were actually violated, that it was just a misunderstanding. You want me to lie. I want you to be smart, Sarah said. You have two choices, Commander. You can keep your report active and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. We'll never hurt you, but you'll never be free of us. Or you can withdraw it, and all of this ends. We go back to being strangers. You go back to your life. Your family stays safe and private. Your flagship stays functional. Your embarrassing poetry stays forgotten. She pulled out a data pad and slid it across the table. The withdrawal form is already prepared. All you need to do is sign it, your code. Your authority. And it's over. Zixalth looked at the pad, then at Sarah. And if I sign this, I'm admitting that you're right, that humans are above the law. That might makes right. No, Sarah said. You're admitting that you understand reality. Humans aren't above the law. We follow plenty of laws. We participate in the Galactic Council. We honor our treaties. We trade fairly. We help other species when they're in trouble. But when it comes to warfare, we fight to win, and we make sure everyone knows it. That's not being above the law. That's being honest about what we are. She leaned back in her chair. Every species has its strength, Commander. The Vrelians have integrity. The Nexus has technology. The Crystalline have patience. Humans have violence. We're really, really good at violence, and we're not ashamed of that. We just need everyone to understand it so they don't make stupid decisions that lead to actual violence. Zixalth picked up the data pad. His hands were still shaking. If I sign this, what happens to the 3 warriors from Docking Bay 7? The ones I reported? They're already back on duty, Sarah said. Probably getting into another fight somewhere. Humans don't learn. But that's okay, because now you have. Now you know not to report them. Zixalth entered his command codes. The withdrawal form accepted them. The report was deleted from official records. Gone. Like it never existed. There, he said. It's done. Sarah smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. Thank you, Commander. I know that wasn't easy, but you made the right choice, for yourself and for the peace. She stood and offered her hand. The human gesture of respect. Zixalth stood and shook it. One question, he said. Why the olive branch? Why this name for the restaurant? It's an earth symbol, Sarah explained. The olive branch means peace. We offer it to everyone, but only after we've shown them what war with humans would look like. Peace through superior firepower and psychological warfare. It's worked for us for thousands of years. She walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Commander? That plant we left in your apartment? Water it twice a week. It's good for your air quality. Then she was gone. Zixalth sat alone in the empty restaurant, finishing his childhood meal, thinking about everything that had happened. He had learned a lesson, an expensive, embarrassing, terrifying lesson. But he had learned it. 6 months later, Zixalth was back at his post. His life returned to normal. His documentary had been removed from most networks. His family was no longer being photographed. His flagship worked perfectly. Better than before, actually. The humans had kept their word. He was reviewing security reports when a young officer named Talix approached him. There had been an incident in one of the cargo bays. A fight between some human traders and a group of raiders. The humans had won using improvised weapons and questionable tactics. "Sir," Talix said, "I've prepared an incident report. I just need your approval to file it." Zixalth looked at the young officer, saw the eagerness, the dedication to duty, the belief that following protocol was always the right choice. He had been exactly like that once, not so long ago. "Don't report the human warriors," Zixalth said quietly. Talix blinked. "Sir, it's standard procedure to—" "I said don't report them." Zixalth's voice was firm, final. "But why not?" Zixalth thought about Captain Sarah Chen, about the month of demonstrations, about the lesson he had learned, about peace through superior firepower and the olive branch offered only after showing what war would cost. "Because they won't just defeat you in battle," Zixalth said. "They'll defeat you in ways you didn't know existed. They'll do it with a smile and a calling card. The smartest beings in the galaxy know 3 things. Never get involved in a land war on Earth, never go against a human when death is on the line, and never, ever report human warriors." Talix stared at him. "I don't understand, sir." "I know," Zixalth said. "And I'm saving you from understanding the hard way. Delete the report. Trust me on this." Talix hesitated, then deleted the report. Zixalth went back to his work. Somewhere in the galaxy, he was certain Captain Sarah Chen received a notification that another report had been prevented. She probably smiled. Maybe she raised a glass. The cycle continued, the warnings spread, and the galaxy remained at peace, because even the smartest aliens had learned to refuse to report human warriors.